I think the most magical thing and sacred thing about this place is it's probably one of the few places in your life where everyone will be rooting for your success. Everyone. The faculty, the staff, the alumni, the other students. And from experience, that's not something you're going to get other places.
From the Office of Institutional Advancement and Alumni Relations, it's Xavier Gold Live, the podcast, bringing you stories of leadership, impact, and the Xavier spirit. What's new, XU? I'm Tashia Hogue.
And I'm Jalen Jones. We're both student journalists from Xavier's Mass Communications Department and are excited to bring you a podcast where we connect with our Xavier community through conversation.
In each episode, we bring you intimate interviews with standout alumni who will give us a glimpse into their unique Xavier experience. Spring has officially sprung, and here at Xavier, we're all about growth. Whether it's growing bonds, growing in faith, or growing academically. While some seniors may be growing out of that phase of senioritis and looking forward to graduation, others may feel like they've given it all they could give.
And speaking of giving, you know what's just around the corner? Give Love Xavier Day. Mark your calendars for April 8th because we're 7 days away from one of the biggest days of giving and gratitude in the Xavier community.
That's right. Our exclusive one-day online fundraiser is your chance to support Xavier's legacy and help provide deserving students with quality education. Show some love for the university and be a part of this meaningful initiative by visiting givelove.xula.edu on April 8th. That's givelove.xula.edu.
When you give love and donate, don't forget to spread the word by using hashtags like hashtag GLX2025 on all social media platforms.
Now, before we get into this episode and as we move closer to the Easter season, we just want to take a moment right here on Xavier Gold Live to recognize a special time of the year.
At Xavier, the only Catholic HBCU in the country, Easter reminds us of God's love, the power of the resurrection, and the hope we have through Christ. It's a time to reflect, to renew, and to remember that even after the darkest days, light always breaks through.
To our Xavier family, alumni, students, and friends, we pray this season brings you closer to God and fills you with peace, joy, and purpose. From all of us at Xavier Gold Live, we wish you a blessed Easter in advance.
Now, let's hop into this episode with Tashia and Dr. Charlette Cain.
Reigning from Xavier's class of 1998, this incredible research veterinarian is dedicated to keeping the E in science ethical. In her leadership role as diplomate of the American College of Laboratory and Animal Medicine Practices, she refines animal models to advance scientific discovery, ensuring that compassion remains at the forefront. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Cain to Xavier Gold Live.
Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here.
So I think we have a few things in common, Dr. Cain, outside of us both being from, Chicago, South Side, Best Side.
South Side?
I aspire to uncover the untold stories of people while you uncover what best practices in animal welfare promote the development of animal model refinement. So I guess what I first want to start off with is giving our listeners just a little glimpse into what that is. What is animal model refinement?
Yeah, wonderful. So first I want to say that my area of specialty is laboratory animal medicine. So I'm a diplomate in the College of Laboratory Animal Medicine, which is basically a college within the field of veterinary medicine where you have to sit for a very difficult board exam. And when you complete that board exam, you become a diplomate within this college. So it's not a physical college, but that is the college that awards that degree. So my area of specialty is to basically ensure the health and well-being of all research animals. So my job is to review studies, that propose working with animals to ensure that the 3 R's are followed. So the 3 R's are what we use in the lab animal science field to ensure animal welfare. And it stands for reduction, replacement, and refinement. So reduction is using the least amount of animals possible to accomplish the goal of the study. So the mouse is the most common research model by far. Over 95% of all research animals are mice. So how many mice do you need for this study? Do you need 50 mice? Do you need 5,000 mice? So that's reduction. And then refinement, my special favorite one, is basically replacing things that would be painful with things that are the least painful as possible. So minimizing pain and distress. So if you have a surgical model, is this something that can be done non-surgically? Yeah. If you have to give an animal an injection, can you give them an oral medication instead? And there's a lot of great examples of refinement. So used to be, if you needed to get your appendix pulled, for example, you had emergency surgery, they took you in, they had to do a full laparotomy where, they did the whole incision. You've been in hospital for several days. Now they can go in laparoscopically. They make 2, maybe 3 tiny incisions. They can take your appendix right out. You're going home sometimes the same day, but that's an example of a refinement. And then the last one is replacement. Do you need to use animals for this study at all? Or if you're proposing a study that involves, let's say, a rabbit, is this something that could be done in a rat instead? So those are the types of things that I look for when I'm reviewing studies. So that's kind of how we ensure animal welfare. And then we also have to look at the science piece, making sure that the study is scientifically justified. What is the question you're trying to answer? Who is going to be helped by this work?
So can you just touch on how your interest in animals possibly came to be? Like, what got you into animal model refinement? Where did this interest stem from?
Okay. So I'll try to make it I'll try to condense the last 40 years of my life as short as possible. But I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was 9 years old. I was always interested in helping animals. So I was bringing home stray cats, and I brought a snake home once. It was a gardener snake. It was fine. But I was very fortunate to have very supportive parents. When I was 9 years old, I didn't know that there were different types of veterinarians. I thought all veterinarians just took care of dogs and cats and sick pets. And then I didn't see any veterinarians that looked like me until I was in high school. And so once I saw a Black woman that was a veterinarian, I knew it was possible. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't believe it was possible until I saw that. So that was very powerful. So I was pre-vet for a long time. And then quite serendipitously, I changed my major to pre-med based on some not so great advice I got from a high school counselor. I think they was trying to be helpful. But he was basically like, you're so smart, you have great grades, why don't you go to medical school and be a real doctor? Why don't you want to be a veterinarian? But anyway, so it actually worked out because that's what brought me to Xavier. So I probably would not have come to Xavier if I had not been pre-med at the time. And being the kind of student that I was, being the type of person that I was, if I'm going to do anything, if I'm going to invest years of my life, I need to see what it's like first. I spent a summer working at an summer internship program, and part of the program was shadowing med students, interns, etc. And I was like, this is not for me. Hard stop. I don't like sick people. And that's okay. People like what they like. You know what I mean? I'm glad that there are people who love working with sick people. I'm just not one of those people. I don't like hospitals. Get me out of here. And then the flip side of that same summer research program was an actual research where we got to work in the animal facility. And that is where I discovered laboratory animal medicine. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, so I can still help people and help animals? So I was like, this sounds perfect. And so that's the short version.
I want to just touch back on what you said about how there wasn't a lot of early representation in this field. Because, this is an industry where only 2.2% of the veterinarians in the United States are Black.
Minorities. Yeah, like minorities, not just like, that's all minorities.
Exactly. How would you say you encourage adaptability and professional growth in this highly specialized field when it comes to diversity? How have you navigated this environment, not only as a person of color, but as a Black woman?
Mentoring, for sure. Mentoring. I have collected mentors throughout my career. I still have mentors. As a senior director, I still have people that I look up to, that I ask questions to. Some of them look like me, some of them don't. But when I was in you guys' shoes, particularly I spent a summer at Pfizer, and it was pretty much just me. Until I saw someone that looked like me that was in a position that I wanted to get. And, she loves to tell this story. She says I was stalking her, but I was a little bit. But I was like, hey, would you be my mentor? Like, I was very focused and very intentional about what it was I was trying to do. And up until that point, I hadn't seen a Black woman in that specialty. And we're still cool. We're sorors now. Like, it's all good. But she was gracious enough to kind of show me the ropes. And I've been extremely fortunate to have that person to kind of tap me on the shoulder, pull me to the side, have coffee with me, have a phone call with me, and kind of show me the ropes. And most of them have been either Xavier graduates, or my other alma mater is Tuskegee University. That's where I went to vet school. So the HBCU network is real.
Yes, I'm definitely tracking. And I love that you use the word intentionality, because I'm looking at the route that you've taken to carry out your studies. You graduated Xavier with your bachelor's in biology, and then you attended another HBCU. To pursue that doctorate in veterinary medicine. And then you also mentioned how at the age of 9, you just knew you wanted to work with animals. But how was that experience of figuring out that route, of deciding, okay, where to go next after Xavier? How was that transition?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I was pre-med when I started. So halfway through my time at Xavier, I shifted gears. And again, I was very fortunate that nobody was like, why you want to be a veterinarian? They were like, okay, let's find out what it is, how you get into veterinary school. Turns out, very similar classes, biology is biology. That's one of the reasons why lab animal is so great, because, the biology is very similar. Animals get the same type of diseases that people get, like, cats, dogs get cancer, they get diabetes, they get cataracts, they get the same thing people get. So you can learn how to diagnose these conditions, how to treat them by studying animals. So basically, when I came back, Dr. J.W. Carmichael, rest his soul, put me in touch with a Xavier graduate who was at Tuskegee and in veterinary school. And bless her heart, she took the time to basically show me what I needed to do. Now, this is the 90s, so we didn't have the internet, so like y'all have the internets. So there were a couple classes that I needed as a prerequisite to get in. They weren't offered at Xavier, so I had to do a correspondence class, which means they mailed you the lesson, like snail mail. You did the lesson, and then you mailed it back. So
in 1925, a promise was fulfilled. St. Catherine Drexel and the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament founded Xavier University of Louisiana, the only Catholic HBCU in the nation. Then, in 1980, a new chapter of faith and scholarship began. Visionaries of the Institute for Black Catholic Studies gathered for the very first summer session, right here on Xavier's sacred grounds. And now, in 2025, we celebrate 100 years of Xavier University. From June 29th through July 18th, the Institute returns home to reflect on God's gift of Blackness in theology and ministry, in community, service, and joy. Join us at the Institute for Black Catholic Studies, a response in praise and thanksgiving for Christ's faithfulness. This is more than a gathering. This is legacy. This is service. This is Xavier.
Take a trip with me back down memory lane. It's time to revisit your time at XU. The year is 1994, and Bantu knots and pixie cuts are the trend in store. This is around a time where you've chosen XU to be the college experience for you. So, what influenced you to attend a college in the 90s?
So I'm a first generation college graduate, and I'm gonna be honest, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, I gotta hold it down for the ancestors. It's all on me. And my family was always big on education. Financially, it was very difficult, for my parents to complete school. So they both started college, but they couldn't complete it for financial reasons. So my dad ended up going to the military, and my mom ended up being a mom. So I always knew I wanted to go the HBCU route, like a lot of folks from my generation, highly influenced by a different world. And I wanted that experience. I wanted that HBCU experience. It was very eye-opening. And I knew I wanted to get out of Chicago. I wanted to get away from home and be on my own and just experience something new. It's the best decision I ever made. So it was between Xavier and Spelman. Okay. And Spelman didn't give me enough money. Xavier was like, we got half on the academic scholarship. And my parents was like, guess where you going?
Okay, so let's lean into that transition. You're from Chicago. You're coming from north to the south. How was that first interaction for you?
I'd never lived in the South, even though I got the South in my blood. My dad's from Texas. So, I had visited Tyler, Texas before, but visiting a place and living in a place, two different things. And, New Orleans is its own planet, okay? Their own food, their own music, their own culture. So it was an adjustment, to say the least. I couldn't understand anybody. Nobody could understand me. I remember asking what kind of pop they had, and they were like, pop. It is pop. So getting used to the music, because bounce was not a thing. It is now. And bounce has taken over, but in 94, I had never heard bounce before. I was like, what is this? But I'm the kind of person that's like, okay, you're here. Let's make the most of it. So go ahead, learn that Jubilee dance. And
I know it was an adjustment. Like you said, that culture shock, maybe a couple language barriers here and there. But I feel like once you found that footing, or once you found out what you were getting yourself into, I feel like that's when you literally can embrace that Xavier experience and everything that comes with it. So with that adjustment, what aspects of this institution made you stay at Xavier?
That's a great question. So the support, I think, from the faculty, I know this is going to sound trite, but Black excellence being the standard made a difference, because, I came from the South Side. Y'all know how it is. Like, people used to make fun of me for reading. So yeah. Why are you reading books? And so being in an environment where not only are you expected to be smart, but to get smarter, to excel, when you have instructors that are like, you can do better than this, that push you. And then your classmates. So you go from being kind of like a unicorn to being like one of many unicorns. Because I remember talking to, I was in KD, shout out to KD dorm. I was like, I'm thinking I'm like showing off a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I was in the honor society. And they were like, yeah, so were we. I'm like, oh, I was in the band. Yeah, we were also in the band. And I'm like, oh, so everybody's excellent. And I had not experienced that before. So that was very eye-opening. And then just the different types of Black people. Because all I knew was Southside Black people. I didn't know West Indian Black people, Muslim Black people, New York Black people. I was like, oh, y'all got money. Who did your room? Who did your dorm room? Okay. But it was a beautiful tapestry. Yeah. And, I'm not going to lie. The first 6 months, I was like, I want to go home. Yeah. But my parents were like, well, give it a year. And if you still want to leave, and I gave it a year. And in that year, I didn't just pout and whine about all the things that were different. I actually tried to get involved. And once I got involved and gave Xavier a chance, I was hooked. You hooked.
So can you touch a little on how you got involved? Like, what were you involved in?
It was the first time I took African American studies. And I was a bit shocked at how little I knew about my own people and my own history. And so I was like, we need an African American Studies Club, and we need to educate people. So we were very vocal about Black excellence and Black history, and just, we had our little newsletter called the Wake Up Call. It would be referred to as woke now, but I want to say we were talking about being conscious back in the 90s, and just letting people know who they are and where they came from. And when you realize the greatness of Black people, you really can't, how do I put it? It's hard to not take advantage of this opportunity. Too much has been sacrificed for us to not take advantage of this opportunity. So we were we were quote unquote militant. We weren't quite. I stopped eating pork for a while. Don't ask me what that had to do with being pro-Black, but everybody was like. But yeah, and then when I changed my major to pre-vet, I had the idea that maybe there were other Xavier students that also wanted to be veterinarians, and how do I find them? So I started the pre-vet club. And at our first meeting, like 5 people came, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, so we had little flyers up, and I actually met with one of the pre-vet students to kind of talk about that. And I talked about how we had the little "You Are Not Alone" flyer with the little cat on it. And some of my classmates who were pre-med even said, I think it's so great that you're doing this. Like, I actually thought about being a veterinarian, but I didn't know what to do and how it was possible. So I'm very happy that it still exists. And shout out to Crystal Huggins, the professor, for keeping it going all those years. So, get in touch with her, and she's in the biology building if you want to get involved with the pre-vet club. But there are students here that want to do things other than human medicine, and animals need doctors too, and we are real doctors.
From his humble beginnings to becoming the only historically Black and Catholic university in the nation, Xavier has remained dedicated to academic distinction and social justice. Now, we honor this remarkable journey with the Xavier Centennial Yearbook, a once-in-a-lifetime keepsake capturing a century of history, resilience, and achievement. Every page tells a story of trailblazers like Dr. Norman C. Francis, who led Xavier for nearly 50 years, and alumni like Dr. Regina Benjamin, former U.S. Surgeon General, and LaToya Cantrell Dutch Morial, the first African-American mayor of New Orleans, shaping the future for leaders to come. Celebrate a century of Xavier pride, relive the memories, honor the legacy, and carry it forward. Get your copy of the Centennial Yearbook today, because history isn't just something we look back on, it's something we build every day. Now, let's get back into the episode.
So, if you could relive one day at Xavier, which day would it be and why?
Graduation. No, because it was a full circle moment for me. Like, my family was there.
Graduation.
They were so proud. Like, my Texas family came, my Chicago family was there, and it was kind of like one of us made it kind of thing. And I will never forget that. I felt really proud of having made it, because a lot of people who start don't finish. Yeah. And I had to work the entire time I was at Xavier. It was very difficult. I had like 3 different jobs. I was working in the library. I was working across the street. It's not there anymore, with the grocery store. Then I got a job at a restaurant. And all this while volunteering, all this while studying, all this while trying to keep my academic scholarship. So the sense of just relief and I would just say gratitude that I felt on that day is just unmatched. I was like, it was a we made it type feeling.
I love that. It's definitely going to be a full circle moment for me, okay? That cannot come soon enough. But what lessons stuck with you from your time at Xavier that, you still implement today? Because I know you touched on, you had 3 jobs, along with our core curriculum and studying what you actually came here to study for. Were there any hard life lessons that you had to learn, or maybe things that you thought you knew that were further emphasized during your time here at Xavier?
I think for me is learning who you are and being okay with the fact that not everybody is going to be okay with who you are, if that makes sense. But as long as you are okay with who you are, that's what matters. Like I try to lead with kindness. I do think that, when you're dealing with people from different backgrounds, a lot of things can get lost in translation. And so just learning to have those conversations and talk to people, not make assumptions, is very important. And so, I was very laser focused on, because, I had the weight of the ancestors and everybody on my shoulders. And so I wasn't super social. I was not, even though I was in the clubs and all of that other stuff, but I wasn't one to just like hang out on the yard and, because I'm working, I'm studying, like I'm going. But I think for me, it was just adjusting to different types of people, because I came from a place where your word is your bond. You say you're going to do something, you do it. And I was extremely naive. I really was, coming into Xavier and people telling me stuff, and I'd be like, okay, and then they don't do it, and then I get my feelings hurt. So I just had to learn, when people show you who they are, believe them, but don't make how people act a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. But that was probably, that takes a while. That's a hard lesson to learn, but it takes a while.
How would you define what it is to be a Xavierite?
Being a Xavierite, it's pride for me. Pride in our heritage, and just the understanding that you can do anything. And I think the most magical thing and sacred thing about this place is it's probably one of the few places in your life where everyone will be rooting for your success. Everyone. The faculty, the staff, the alumni, the other students. And from experience, that's not something you're going to get other places. Now, you might get it at another HBCU, but once you get into the workforce, there's going to be a lot of, negativity, antagonistic energy. But with the foundation I got here, I think I'm not as impacted by that as if I had not gone here. So I came here, I got knowledge of self, and I know as a Xavierite, I can do anything because I know so many bomb Xavierites. Y'all had some people on from my class, like class of 98 is out here killing it. I see Xavierites doing amazing things all the time. And so when someone tells me I can't do something, I just see it as a challenge. I don't internalize that at all. I'm like, watch me, I'll show you better than I can tell you. So that's what being a Xavierite means to me.
Yes, and what are your hopes for Xavier's future as it continues to push forward and fear nothing in its next century?
I love all the growth. I'm excited about the medical school that's coming along. We need more people that look like us in more rooms. So I don't care if it's boardrooms, operating rooms, waiting rooms, I don't care. But we need people who are going to advocate for us. I've been in the research field for 20-something years, and I have worked with approximately 2 researchers who were Black. Yeah. 2. And as you all know, there are certain conditions like sickle cell that disproportionately affect Black people. But you need researchers that care about that type of thing. So researchers are going to do research on things that they care about. That's why cystic fibrosis has so much money going into it. But it doesn't affect Black people as much as it affects white people. But the reality is people fund the things and research the things that they care about. So if we want to move the needle on things going in our community, then we have to start looking at ways to get into those spaces. So I'm happy that I'm now in a position to help open doors for other students, particularly Xavier students. This is why I come back for YMTF, because I know how powerful it is to see someone in a profession that looks like you. Especially one that's not historically very diverse, and to see what that person's success looks like. You have to define what success looks like for you, and don't let anyone else define what that is. For some people, it could be making a lot of money. But for me, I need to feel passionate about what I do. I need to get up every day feeling like I'm making a difference. And that's what's most important for me.
Now it's time to rush our gold guests into answering some rapid fire questions. This segment of the podcast is called the Live 5, where I'll ask you 5 questions we think our gold community would love to know. So let me know when you're ready.
All right, I think I'm ready.
What was your favorite go-to meal in college?
Oh man, that was Snappy's meatball sandwich.
If you had to sum up your Xavier experience in 3 words, what would it be?
Transformative, healing, powerful.
On a scale of 1 to 10, rate the food here in New Orleans.
11.
What's one fashion trend in the 90s that you absolutely adore?
Baggy pants. Bring it back. Why do you think I'd be tight all the time?
Last question. If you had to have a theme song for your college experience, what would it be?
I really like Who's That Girl by Eve.
Well, that wraps up our Live 5 round. Again, Dr. Cain, it was such a pleasure connecting with you, an outstanding alumna, through conversation. Please tell our Growing Gold community how they can stay connected with you online.
You can catch me on LinkedIn. That is my professional page, Charlette Cain, Cain, on LinkedIn.
Thank you for tuning in to the Xavier Gold Live podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Now, XU, you know what to do. Join our Growing Gold community on the first Tuesday of every month.
This podcast is available to listen to wherever you listen to your podcast. Do us a favor by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show today. Make sure to also follow us on social media and subscribe to our monthly newsletter.
This is Xavier Gold Live, the podcast where Xavier's legacy comes to life.